Welcome to the Beatles, the ultimate rock band, the Beatles for Sale album. To truly understand this album, we got to dive into what the Beatles were doing in 1964. They had the worst and yet probably the best and longest year of their career, with way too many concerts and things. 1964 was a grinder year for the boys. And you can tell by looking at the cover of this album, they were running on fumes. Let's check out their schedule. They played well over 150 concerts across multiple continents. That included a North American tour where they crammed 32 shows in 34 days. Crazy. Oh, and in between the gigs, well, they had to write and perform and premiere a movie all about themselves. They did countless BBC sessions, press conferences, 73 million people on The Ed Sullivan Show. Amazing stuff, but it was tiring for the boys. They had massive hit singles and put out 2 albums in 1 year. Amazing. Of course, we'll never know what it was like to be a Beatle in 1964, but check out the album cover here. There's no smiling mop-top faces here. The boys were exhausted, and it shows. In the end, the boys dragged themselves back into the studio in August of 1964 to have another album out. 2 albums a year they wanted to do, and they did it, but they had to rely on a few cover tracks again because they just didn't have enough time in between concerts and filming and everything to write a full album themselves. But what they did do is go back to their Cavern Club days and play the rock and roll that they loved to play. Also, famously in August of 64, the Beatles met Bob Dylan at the Delmonico Hotel in New York, and he famously introduced them to, the Herbal cigarettes. And it fundamentally changed the way John Lennon started writing songs, which turned out to be amazing. If you listen to the song like I'm a Loser or No Reply, great songs. Not exactly rock and roll, but they're amazing songs that starts to look inward for him. Another Dylan influence was a lot more acoustic guitars. It basically started the whole folk rock thing with this album. It started a little bit in Hard Day's Night, but this solidified the folk rock thing with songs like, No Reply and I'm a Loser and things. Great songs, but it was a little bit mellower than usual. Now, George was still using his Rickenbacker 360 12 string. He was relying heavily on his Gretsch Tennessean at this time. Great tone. I'd love to own one and try, or even just try one out. But John relied more heavily on his Gibson J160 acoustic to give it a different flavor for this album. Ringo was doing some interesting things on this album too that wasn't rock and roll, but it was very innovative. He was using some African drums and even timpani on a song. Great stuff. They were still using 4-track mastering and everything on this album. Norman Smith and George Martin were becoming real good at bouncing tracks down and making it sound seamless. Now, you also have to remember that the boys, since they did way too many concerts this year, they were at the top of their game as being a tight rock and roll band, which we'll show later on. A lot of the songs were recorded live because they were so good at being a tight band at this time as well. If you're enjoying my Beatles series, please give us a like and subscribe. More coming up with lots of albums and tracks. Thanks. Now, the first song I want to look at is one of the covers on the album, straight ahead rock and roll Chuck Berry number called Rock and Roll Music. John just shreds his voice on this song. They did it in one take because by the end, John's voice was just shot.
Just let me hear some of that rock and roll music. Any old way you choose it. It's got a backbeat, you can't blues it. Any old time you use it. Gotta be rock roll music if you wanna dance with me.
Now, the secret weapon in this song is George Martin playing along with the boys on a Steinway in the studio to keep that hard driving rhythm going on. Great stuff. It gives it that incredibly fat rock and roll barrelhouse sound that just drives the song. Now, the next song, Kansas City, is amazing. It's just a blues rock kind of thing that the Beatles are doing that I just love. Let's listen to Ringo and Paul's section just by themselves. Incredible. Now, if you listen to the whole band without the vocals, you'd never know, really, it was the Beatles. You know, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand. They're playing like a great, tight blues rock band. Have a listen. Another outstanding part of this song is McCartney's vocal. He's just giving her on this one, hitting the high notes and everything. I just love it. Let's have a listen.
Kansas City, gonna get my baby back home. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to Kansas City, gonna get my baby back home. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a long, long time since my baby's been gone.
Now, they gave George a turn here with Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, Carl Perkins' classic tune, and George's guitar playing and vocals are just amazing here. It's just rockabilly fun. They drenched George's vocal in a massive tape delay to kind of be reminiscent of the original Sun recordings. Very cool stuff. Now, this was called the Steed Effect. Let's have a listen to George's vocal on this one.
Well, they took some honey from a tree, dressed it up and they called it me. Everybody's trying to be my baby. Everybody's trying to be my baby. Everybody's trying to be my baby now.
George's guitar solo is just amazing. I love this kind of stuff. The old rockabilly, he knows all the licks and tricks learned from Carl Perkins and the boys back in the day. Let's have a listen to George's solo. Now, for the last song I picked was 8 Days a Week. To this day, this song, I just love this song. I played it for many years in cover bands, and it always went over. Now, normally in a pop rock song, back in the day, you know, songs always ended with a fade out. Well, the engineers thought, let's do a fade in, and you can hear that coming in, and the band just gets together and rocks it out. Let's have a listen. John using his Gibson 160E on this, hitting it heavily to get that, you know, that kind of locomotion sound with the hand claps and everything else in there. It's just a driving beat. Great rock song. Well, thanks for watching the Beatles, the Ultimate Rock Band, the Beatles for Sale album. If you like this kind of stuff, please like and subscribe. It sure would help the channel. Now, 1964 wasn't just 2 albums worth of stuff. The Beatles also recorded some singles that were truly rocking. I'll examine that in the next episode. Have a great day.